following segment contains strong, uncaffeinated opinions about softball which will offend those who are happy with the status quo. The views and opinions expressed on YISI-Gold are those of only the host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the views or positions of Inner Circle, D1 Softball, and their respective affiliates or employees. The broadcaster and this segment cannot be held accountable for any pearl-clutching, prickly, hypersensitive tweeting or social media as a result. Not like he gives a anyway.
Top of the morning to you, or whatever time of day that you're watching this lovely segment. Welcome to another edition of YISI-Gold. My name is Victor Anderson. I'm recording this Wednesday morning. Still basking in the afterglow of my Florida Panthers taking home the first Stanley Cup championship. Got the coffee. Freshly brewed, ready to roll, and ready to talk about the things going on in the sport of softball. But first things first, as always, make sure you subscribe and download to our podcast. Follow Inner Circle on Twitter/X and on Facebook for all the latest information. We're going to have a schedule change coming up with the podcast. That's going to be next week. That's the weekend of the 4th of July. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can recap and watch, again, our Inner Circle Live After Dark videos, recapping the Women's College World Series Champ Series. We got Coach Jamie Pinkerton. And, of course, follow D1 Softball for all the latest news and information on what's going on with the sport. I've been off for a couple of weeks, kind of biding my time to figure out what I want to talk about. But needless to say, with the LA Olympics set to start in 4 years and a month from now, a lot of conversation has been about softball not being played in Los Angeles, but instead going to be played in Oklahoma City. So today's today's I said it, will be gold medal ratings, no medal support. So it was first reported by Dylan Buckingham, who hosts a radio show on a franchise in Oklahoma City. And here's part of the statement that the IOC has released as to why they're not going to be having softball and canoe in Los Angeles for 2028. While Southern California has more professional and collegiate sports venues in any area in the United States, there is no canoe slalom venue that exists locally or anywhere in the Western United States. And the largest softball venue in Southern California seats fewer than 2,000 people, which does not meet the expected spectator demand for softball at the Olympics. Now, before we get into the tweets, listen to that sentence one more time. The largest softball venue in Southern California seats fewer than 2,000 people, which does not meet the expected spectator demand for softball at the Olympic Games. So the IOC probably knew well in advance that there was going to be a clamoring to watch softball, with it being back in the Olympics after not being in this year's Olympics in Paris. Because heaven forbid we need to have breakdancing. That's another, I said it for another day. Anyway, statement continues. Instead of undertaking additional construction projects to build temporary venues for these sports, LA 28 will assign canoe slalom and softball competitions to the world-class venues in Oklahoma City. Hey, Oklahoma City, this gives you 4 years to actually continue to rebuild the infrastructure and make the stadium experience as a whole a lot better for everyone involved. But again, another topic for another rant. It continues. The venues at Oklahoma City, these assignments are also in alignment with the IOC's Olympic Agenda 2020+5 recommendation, which emphasizes sustainability by encouraging the use of existing venues beyond the region of the host city. Okay, so you have so many colleges in Los Angeles, UCLA, USC, they have baseball stadiums. In Tokyo, which a tweet that I will share with you in a moment, they played softball and baseball in that same stadium. Y'all couldn't do that for softball? But again, what do I know? I'm just a guy who produces a show. The statement continues as forward. Both the canoe, slalom, and softball venues in Oklahoma City are built to international competition standards, ensuring a high-quality experience for athletes and fans, while allowing LA 28 to realize cost savings and revenue gains to support its balanced budget. So that statement essentially answers all the questions that you need to know. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. So instead of me expressing my frustrations with the situation, I will react to some of the tweets that I saw and will share with all of you right now. So let me get this banner out the way. We can show that. So this is from my good friend Tom Canterbury. If there were only 5 years of time to build a facility in the LA area so softball players can have the full Olympic experience, and that facility could also possibly be a Women's College World Series host in the future. What a wasted opportunity. Let's remember, folks, that the contract that Oklahoma City has with the Women's College World Series does not expire until, I believe, 2036. I'm sure you Oklahoma fans will correct me if I am wrong, which you always like to do. And for that, I thank you for keeping me honest and accountable. Danielle Laurie, who won bronze in the Tokyo Olympics. I dislike this a lot. First, a COVID Olympics for softballers after it was out for 12 years where they couldn't socialize with other countries, match 24/7 unless on the field, and COVID test daily. Now, 8 years later, an Olympics where they truly can't be a part of best moments. And a reply that says, I agree, Danielle, it's robbing the players of the whole Olympic experience. Yes, it's a great stadium for softball, but it's not fair to the athletes. The ILC has consistently shown that they don't care about the athletes as much. Well, let me rephrase that. They care about certain athletes in certain sports, but the most important thing that they care about is the almighty dollar. But I digress. Brittany Cervantes, who represented Team Mexico. I don't know logistics, but we played in baseball stadiums in Tokyo, but we can't do the same in LA. Is there an Olympic Village in Oklahoma too, or do they miss out on that too? Again, valid point, Brittany. Very valid point. You have baseball stadiums. You can play them at UCLA. You can play it at USC, have temporary fencing, and build stands behind those stands so the fans, so they can, if they're so worried about the expected capacity and the demand for tickets, that's the problem. That's the thing. They could have done that. In the NPF, when they played the championship series, I forgot what city it was, but 2017, 2018, they played it at a baseball stadium with temporary fences. They could do that again. Actually, one better. When they played at Hoover for the World Games, they played it at the Met, the Hoover Met. They could do this. They could copy the same model and build stands and bring in temporary bleachers behind the stands. I don't see the problem with that. But again, if it was, I'll state, there's a tweet about that and I'm going to show you later on. Melissa, thank you so much for tweeting. She tweets back, a growing sport deserves a venue in SoCal. If we didn't have one that met standards, then build one. We shouldn't have one stadium in the entire country that meets standards. This is such a missed opportunity in a region that hosts PGF, Alliance, and TCS championships yearly. Again, all valid points. If they felt it was an important issue, they would have done it already. And I kind of just teased the tweet that you'll be seeing down the line. Oklahoma people, some of them are upset that softball is coming back to Oklahoma City. Abu Masuna. All Okies crying about a few Olympic sports being here are embarrassing. Have some damn pride in your state and understand OKC is going to show up for this. Oh, and the athletes will be well taken care of. And Courtney Bradich says, hi, actual OU fan here, born and raised in Oklahoma. Nobody's crying or saying that the athletes won't be taken care of, but a different perspective might be that it's sad that LA didn't bother to invest in them. Sad that they won't experience the primary Olympic Village. That is the main focus, is that the athletes are going to be separated from everyone else in LA and won't get the true Olympic experience. I agree with you, Courtney, with that one. Emily Pitek, that first tweet on the left of your screen, that is the biggest point I want everyone to understand, because more than one thing can be true. A few statements can exist at the same time. Knowing OKC is a great venue for softball. Wishing that the LA Games would include all the sports, including a regionally popular sport in softball. Wishing since 96 that the country could have built great softball venues around the USA. And it stresses how certain schools and certain areas of the nation take softball more seriously than others who just want to rely on their tradition, their heritage, and think that everyone's going to gravitate to them. There's a certain four-letter school out on the West Coast where the Olympics will be held who is highly guilty of this situation and circumstance. Brian at Champum replies back, the Olympic Committee needs to spend money and make it happen somewhere around LA. NASCAR turned the Coliseum into a temporary racetrack, but they can't turn a baseball stadium into a softball venue for the Olympics. Now look at Emily's reply. That is the important reply that you want to look at. Anything is doable when parties want it to happen. The IOC, as corrupt as they are, don't want to spend any money on this. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get a... If I was wearing a hat right now, I would tip it to her. I would give her a standing ovation, because that tweet in the middle of your screen nailed it right on the head. Anything is doable when parties want it to happen. If they felt that it was a priority to have softball, a phenomenal venue like they're going to have with baseball, it would have been done. But alas, the IOC took the easy way out, as well as the LA 28 committee. Reed Pocky, my colleague at D1 Softball, chipped in. Part of the entire pitch to the IOC to get the Olympics in LA was not to spend money on to build new venues. I still wish you could have found a way to play somewhere near LA, even a baseball stadium. USC and UCLA, they could have used those two baseball stadiums. It's not like they were playing any baseball outside of May anyway. But again, I digress. Seth Oliveris. This is for those who have been desperately pleading for the site of the Women's College World Series to be rotated or relocated away from Oklahoma City. If the Los Angeles Olympic Committee couldn't/wouldn't invest in a state-of-the-art softball facility for its 2028 Summer Games, what makes you think any other place in America would be willing to make such a commitment? I mean, let's be really, really honest with ourselves here. Next time you catch yourself crying about the Women's College World Series being held in Oklahoma City, mainly reporters who work in Austin and are crying about it, who have never watched a softball game in their life except when they have to report it for their local 6 o'clock news. But I digress. Next time the Women's College World Series is being held in Oklahoma City, remember how little the money cares. The players care, the coaches care, the fans care, but the ones who have the means to prioritize the sport with bigger stadiums and venues have proven that, once again, they simply do not care. That sound you hear is me toasting and sipping my coffee in acknowledgement of Seth's statement. Now, the fifth and final one I want to provide you is a couple threads. The first two tweets you see on the left of your screen are from former Sooner Nicole Mendez, who knows a thing or two about playing in Oklahoma City. And she says, I don't run on Twitter too often, but I feel like this needs to be talked about. Part of being an Olympian and the experience is to be able to be around other Olympians. The fact that LA is pushing the softball Olympics halfway across the country is ridiculous. Also, softball fans have been saying for years that softball is growing. Well, when there's only one women's stadium able to hold enough athletes in the country, wouldn't you think the Olympics would be a perfect opportunity to make one? And even if a softball stadium is somehow out of the question, seriously, don't place a bid if you can house all the sports. Thank you, Nicole. That is a underlying point. If you're going to host the Olympics, you need to make sure that you're able to host all of the sports. Now, Paris has some sports that are going to be held outside of the country, but again, that's a whole nother topic for another day. But if your city is going to host the Olympics, wouldn't it make sense to have enough venues and space available where you can host all of the events? But again, what do I know? If you can't, even if a softball stadium was somehow out of the question in the 2020-2021 Olympics, in Japan, they transferred their baseball stadiums into softball stadiums to be able to house the sports closer. It makes me sad for these future Olympians to not experience some of the best parts of the games, and of course, the camaraderie and the friendship with it. I might be the only ones thinking at this, but as a professional softball player and analyst and a former Olympian, I feel the Olympic Committee needs to be way better. 100% agreed on that, Nicole. Alyssa Razzo, softball players don't have to, quote, have a let's take what we get mentality. We've proven as a sport over and over that we have the fan base, but let's make sure we play them 1,000 miles away and not give them the same Olympic experience as all the other sports. And the final tweet from Stevie Sports 822, I don't care that it's in OKC. That's not the issue. I care that the Olympic Committee took the easy way out instead of putting meaningful investment into softball that would have made a lasting impact for the game. I mean, I don't think I could say any other things that have already been said, tweeted, discussed. If the Olympic Committee actually cared about the sport, then they would have found a way to keep the sport in LA for the 2028 games. It's plain and simple. If it was a big deal, they would have found a way. But with the IOC, if it don't make them dollars, then it don't make sense. Thus, gold medal ratings, no medal support. That's it for this edition of Yeah, I Said It. We appreciate y'all watching this video. We're going to have a brand refresh. You're kind of seeing it a little bit with the colors. We're going to get that really going for our next Yeah, I Said It. We're going to be trying to get more of a regular schedule. So it'll likely be on Wednesdays throughout the summer. And trust me, folks, I will have some thoughts on the realignment that will be official on Monday. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the moves are going to be official as of July 1. Maybe Eric and I do something a little special about that. Stay tuned to Inner Circle Socials for all of that. Also, I do have an announcement I want to make before I sound off, before I check out here today. So can we get that music, please? If you're listening to Thursday's show and you're wondering where I am, I will be busy celebrating the Panthers, and also I'm going to be broadcasting the Space Coast World Series taking place in Vieira for softball. So I will not be on Thursday's episode of In the Circle. Eric's got that by himself. I will rejoin him potentially next week, but you have to listen to find out if that is the case. So that's it for this edition of Yeah, I Said It. Let's keep the conversation going. If you like what you hear, you got your thoughts, you got some questions, share them down in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Circle podcast. Make sure you follow us right here on YouTube. Make sure you click on that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you don't miss any episodes that we go live on Yeah, I Said It, or any of our live speeds here on In the Circle. I'm Victor Anderson. Thank you so much for watching. As always, top podcaster out. Good night, Canada. And it was a good night in South Beach, indeed.